This movie is based on true events, showcasing the disastrous floods of Kedarnath that ruined many lives in 2013. The movie starts with a beautiful aerial view of the Kedarnath temple, nestled among the breathtaking mountains of Uttarakhand. Then the male lead of the film, Mansoor Khan, is introduced. Mansoor is a Muslim porter who helps pilgrims trek through the terrain to reach the temple. He is a kind and devoted person who can also speak almost every language of India. He picks up an elderly lady on his back and starts his trek towards the temple. All the way through the journey, he keeps the woman entertained. Halfway through, he takes some sweets from his mother's shop and gives them for free to the woman. As he leaves the shop, his mom, Amina, requests him to bring some money back home, rather than splurging it all on the pilgrims. Finally, trekking through treacherous mountains, they reach the temple. After the woman and her family pay respect at the temple, Mansoor approaches them and they take a selfie together. On his way back, Mansoor sees a young girl quarreling with a man. The girl is Mandakini Misra, also known as Maku, the protagonist of the story. Maku is a free-spirited girl and the daughter of a priest, who is fighting with the man because his mule ruined her brand new sandals. In the next scene, we see a few men gathered at a tea spot, discussing how there are no facilities for the porters here at Kedarnath. One of the men tells the others that the commission wants to open a hotel in the area, even though it is prohibited to do so. They are discussing the hotel when Mansoor also joins them. Turns out that this construction plan is led by the high priest's nephew, Kalu. Later, Maku watches a cricket match, and she stops her uncle from coming into the room, because whenever he enters, something bad happens to the Indian cricket team. He leaves, muttering that whether Indian team gets beaten by the Pakistani team or not, she will definitely get a few hits from her father tonight. On the other corner of the city, Mansoor is also keeping up with the match on his radio. Maku curses when the Pakistani batsman hits another six. Her mother scolds her, but her sister, Brinda, says that Maku's tongue should be washed with a soap or detergent for cursing this much. When she curses once again, her mom gets angry and turns off the television. But she picks up the remote and turns it on once again. Her father, Brairaj Jai, gets home and orders her to turn it off, and with annoyance she obliges. Both the brothers discuss that since the tourist season has started at Kedarnath, it will be super busy from now onwards. He then informs everyone that his brother will look after the accounts, and both Maku and Brinda will be at Shankar Lodge. He then asks his wife, Lada, about a key set that he cannot seem to find. At the mention of the keys, Maku stands up and offers to get the keys. Before leaving, she asks her dad to let her do the accounts this time, because she is fed up of doing the womanly chores at the lodge. After she leaves, Brinda informs them that Maku has a Facebook profile, and they should keep her in check, or else she will fly away. Maku claims she was going to get the keys, but instead she stops on her way to see the cricket match. She sits on the same bench as Mansoor, who is listening to the match but not watching it. They make brief small talk before focusing on the tense game. When only one ball is left, she decides to leave because she can't watch her team lose. But he reminds her that a miracle could happen. There could be a 6 off the last ball. She sits down, but says that her God is not in the mood today, so he should ask his Allah for help. He prays, and miraculously it is a 6. At India's win, everyone claps and rejoices, but Maku's celebrations are cut short by her mother, who arrives and takes her back home, calling her out on her shameless behavior. The next day, Kalu goes over preparations for the arrival of the pilgrims when Maku arrives. She hands him a paper, saying that her father has sent it to be signed. Right then, he sees Mansoor taking a selfie with the pilgrims, so he goes over to him and scolds him for coming this close to the temple. At this, Mansoor smiles and says that he drops the pilgrims 2 kilometers away, but he comes here to give his thanks. Kalu scoffs and says that there are other places for people like him to give thanks. Mansoor is undeterred by his nasty attitude, though, and leaves with a smile. Brairaj Jai sees all this encounter, smiles, and says that Mansoor is an innocent person. Kalu still seems annoyed. Maku, who is watching Kalu and Mansoor, follows him out of the temple. She gets on his mule and orders him to take her to Rambara. He is shocked at her sudden arrival, but obliges. Halfway through, she asks him to stop. She gets down and starts removing signboards from the wall. When he questions her, she replies that instead of mountains, valleys and trees, these ugly signboards are visible in the valley. She then says that if he tries to report her to the police, she will deny any involvement, and he will be the one getting in trouble. At evening, Kalu arrives at Brairaj's place. He is having a conversation with Brairaj when a young man knocks at their door, asking to marry Maku. Kalu comes out and slaps the man, telling him that Maku is his fiancé, and scares him away. After the man leaves, an angry Kalu stomps away. Brairaj orders his wife to handle her daughters and leave. Lada comments that Maku is a college dropout, sitting at their home just to cast an eclipse on them. Mansoor arrives home, and his mom scolds him for not taking a complete fare from the pilgrims once again. He laughs and reminds his mom of what his dad used to say, but his mom cuts him off mid-sentence, and says that she is paying for all the claims his dad made. She starts crying, asking how many times she has warned him not to ring the bell at the temple, and begging him to stick to his job. He retaliates that this is what his father used to do, and his mom agrees. His father always used to put others in front of himself, and that is the reason he lost his life, falling off the mountain while fetching a child's shoe, and now she does not want to lose her son the same way. He replies that if only he had been with his father, he might have been alive today. Turns out Mansur somewhat blames himself for his father's passing. Later at night, Kalu is once again at Maku's place. Her father asks her to bring some pakoras for Kalu, but she instead takes out a knife, and says that she can't because she is injured. Her father glares at her and leaves. Brinda calls her a drama queen, but Maku snaps at her, taunting her about Kalu dropping his engagement to Brinda. Now he is demanding to marry Maku instead of her. It seems like this is a source of bad blood between them. The next day, Kalu shows the plan of the hotel to the commission. They tell him that he is trying to sweet-talk them into trouble, and removing the statue of Dara Devi would be disastrous for them, because the river flows because of her blessings. But he argues that a hotel will be beneficial for everyone, and they will profit from it. In the next scene, Brinda and Maku are sitting on a roadside food stall waiting for someone. They are sipping tea when Kalu arrives and introduces them to his friend Taring, who will be working with them from now on. They both sit down with the girls, and Kalu asks her if she is angry because he left her sister, or is she showing attitude because he chose her. At this, the girls leave, Maku seething with anger and Brinda crying. Later at their house, Maku sits beside the window, watching Mansur interact with the pilgrims. Her father then says that she needs to help her uncle with the work today. At first, she disagrees, but then out of nowhere suddenly agrees. Everyone gets shocked at her being so agreeable, but she replies that she has been taking care of herself for the past 19 years. Handling a shop will not be a big deal. Outside, she asks Mansur to take her to Rambara. When he says it is not possible, she holds his hand and asks what his problem is. A bit puzzled, he acquiesces. On the way, she makes small talk with him and teases him. But no matter what she says, she does not get a reply. He drops her off at the shop and leaves. This becomes their daily routine, him taking her from her house on his mule, her ranting, and him listening to her. She even tells his mule, Rustam, that she will pass away talking, but will never get a response from Mansur. One day, he picks her up on his back because Rustam is not well, and she teases him by saying that riding on Rustam is better. During these rides up and down the mountain, they become friends. He goes to the temple for her, and she gets ready every day before meeting him. He even adorns Rustam with beautiful cloth, because she made a comment in passing about how Rustam is dressed in rags. They even start drinking tea from the same cup. One day it rains heavily, so they find shelter inside a cave. He finally speaks, asking her what sweetheart means. She called him that the other day. She smiles and replies that a sweetheart is someone close to one's heart. He tests the word on his tongue and smiles. She then tells him that the day her grandmother passed away, it rained so much that it felt like her grandmother was pouring down from above, and that is why she drinks rainwater. She takes a mouthful of rainwater and drops it on his face, and they both laugh at her absurdity. He then tells her about his father, that they both used to listen to Lata Mangeshkar's songs, and when his father used to sing, it would feel like his soul was in his eyes. After his father passed away, his mom never listened to music again, but he listens to the same songs over and over again. He then sings for her, and when the song ends, they share a passionate kiss as the rain pours around them. Kalu informs the people of the valley about the hotel plan. Mansur claims that the valley won't be able to handle the weight of the hotel. Kalu replies that since he is a Muslim, he won't understand their devotion towards the pilgrimage. Mansur offers the idea of limiting the number of pilgrims, but others oppose him by saying that pilgrimage and profit goes hand in hand. Kalu taunts Mansur about not knowing anything about pilgrimage because of his religion, but he replies that this pilgrimage runs in his blood, and he won't be able to separate them. Later, he goes to meet Maku. He tells her that everyone used to say to voice his opinions and be like his father, and today when he spoke, it blew up. He then tells her that the day his father lost his life, he went to watch a cricket match instead of staying with his dad, and since then, he never watched a match. That's why he was just listening the other day. He says that his father left them forever, and just like him, she will also leave him and go off with somebody else. She hugs him from behind, promising that she is stuck to him like a leech, and will keep sucking his blood forever. He then invites her to his best friend's wedding. She agrees, and they hug. At the wedding, Mansur is managing the preparations when Maku arrives. Upon seeing her, he smiles and sings a song for her, calling her his sweetheart. Amina sees them both dancing together, and a worried expression crosses her face. But they all still dance and sing together, ending the wedding festivities on a happy note. The next day Brinda goes to Mansur, warning him to stay away from Maku and concentrate on his work. At his shocked expression, she comments that even his mule would have better sense. After she leaves, he immerses himself in work and cries angrily. He doesn't even pick up when Maku calls. Later that night, Brinda asks Maku to stop visiting Rambara. Maku asks her to mind her own business. At this, she tells Maku not to wait any longer, because he won't come anymore. She told him that making boys fall in love with her is Maku's hobby. Both sisters fight and slap one another. Brinda claims that Maku interfered in her life, and Maku is stunned for a moment, then retorts that Brinda spews out poison, because she blames Maku for what Kalu did. The next day, Maku goes after Mansoor, but he ignores her. She pleads that she was going to tell him about her engagement with Kalu, but he only tells her to shut up. He asks her if all of this is a game for her, because this whole valley belongs to her and her father. Next time, she should make sure that her victim is from a family like her own. After this, Maku does not leave him alone. Whether it is his house or mom's shop, she finds him. But like every time, he ignores her. All of this breaks Maku's heart. She even stops rejoicing at the wins of the Indian cricket team. One day she finally gets hold of him, with red tear-filled eyes, asking him how he could have believed Brinda. He replies that no one will accept their relationship, trying to stay strong and ignore how he feels. She does not give up on him, and in the heavy rainfall she waits for him outside his house. He tries to ignore her, but sees her shivering in the cold. He eventually picks her up and brings her inside. His mom warns him to not do so, because there will be mayhem. But he can't just leave her there. He wraps her up in a quilt and cries. At her house, Kalu arrives and asks about Maku's whereabouts. He manhandles Brinda when he finds out the truth. She replies that he isn't the only one who can play games. He asks her one more time about Maku, and she replies that she is in her lover's arms. He drops her on the bed, and immediately goes to inform her father about Maku's relationship. Kalu and Brayaraj, along with other people, go to the residence of the porters. Kalu says that he will remove every porter from this sacred place, because a Muslim porter has laid his hands on a priest's daughter. On hearing noises, Maku comes out of the house and stands in front of Mansoor. Brayaraj slaps her and drags her with him. Brayaraj takes Maku to the river and dips her in the water while chanting verses to purify her. Her mom says that she feels crushed, but on the other hand, it seems like Maku has turned to stone. She tells Maku to stop making a spectacle, but she replies that the show has just begun. At her home, her mom does her arti, but she keeps repeating Mansoor's name. Her mom quietens her by placing a hand on her mouth and asks her to let it go. Brinda comes up behind her and says spitefully that their mother never stood up for her when Kalu rejected her, but she should at least stand up for Maku. In the thundering rain, Mansoor arrives at Maku's place. Brayaraj slaps him for entering his house, and when he tries to speak, he slaps him again. Kalu arrives with his men, and they all beat him with sticks and bats. Mansoor's friend arrives, picks up an unconscious Mansoor and takes him away, the rain pouring hard on them. Brayaraj goes inside and informs the family that she will be getting married tomorrow. He tells her that even if hell breaks loose, she will be getting married at 8 in the morning. She replies that she will pray day and night that it does break loose. It rains heavily the whole night. People gather at Mansoor's place and advise Amina to leave the mountain for their own safety. The day of the 15th of June 2013 starts with torrential rain. Like every day, pilgrims visit the temple of Kedarnath to pay their respects, not knowing what awaits them. At Brayaraj's house, wedding festivities are going on in full swing. Lada readies Maku, then brings her down to the canopy for the wedding rituals. Kalu sits there smiling, waiting for his bride. On the other side of the valley, Amina packs their stuff to leave this place forever. Mansoor gets out of the house, and when Amina tries to stop him, he says that they are not leaving home, and he will not go anywhere without Maku. At his recklessness, Amina drenches herself in kerosene oil, and threatens to set fire if he does not forget Maku. Tied between his love for his mom and Maku, he stands in the pouring rain, his tears mixing with water. At the wedding, Maku and Kalu take rounds around the fire. Kalu smiles, but Maku takes every step with a heavy heart. After the rituals end, she unties the cloth tying her with Kalu and goes back up. A man arrives and informs Kalu that Mansoor has refused to give up the shop. At the Meteorological Department of India, people observe a cyclonic circulation heading west. In her room, Maku takes a blade and slits. Brinda finds her unconscious on the ground and calls for help. Kalu goes in front of the commission and says that every member of the commission should know that they will not let a single porter stay in Rambara unless they meet their conditions. They all go to Rambara and start destroying the shops there. Mansoor arrives and he gets into a fist fight with Kalu. He taunts Kalu with Maku's rejection, asking him if it hurts so much that he feels the need to burn down the entire town. Kalu responds that he will eradicate Mansoor and his kind from the valley, and as for Maku, she has married him. Mansoor stares at him in disbelief, as he believes she would rather die than marry him. Kalu replies that she is now his wife, and is also bleeding out because she slit her wrists. Mansoor pushes him away and runs for dear life, runs for his Maku, his sweetheart. He reaches her home and finds her lying in the bed. He cries over her still form, holding her hand and wailing. He promises that after dropping off his mother, he will come back for her. Maku cries too, admitting to him that they married her, and if she survives, she will be sent off with Kalu. Mansoor says that he does not care, he will get her from wherever she is. She cries, asking him to not be late this time, and to come get her before she loses her life. Mansoor goes home and loads their stuff onto Rustam. He, Amina and other porters leave Rambara in the heavy rain. Maku wakes up in the middle of the night to her room filled with water. She calls for her mom, who summons her outside. She comes out and sees that the valley is flooded, so her mom takes her and some other people upstairs to safety. Brearage hands them towels and cloths to cover themselves from cold. While passing on the stuff, Maku looks out of the window and sees a wave of water, so fast and strong that it destroys everything in its way. The weather deteriorates, cutting of the electric supply. On the other side of the valley, the porters are moving with their families when people shout at each other that flood is coming, and to head towards the forest. They all rush in the opposite direction, to save themselves from the coming flood. Brenda makes tea for people, while Maku wraps them in quilts. Suddenly the flood hits their house with all its might. The walls crack, and the curtain catches fire. One side of their house collapses, taking Lada, Brenda and some other people with it. Maku screams and runs after them, but her father stops her right before she falls down. They all run from their house in search of a safe place, and find shelter in the temple of Kedarnath. Mansoor, Amina and other porters reach at the top of the forest, and hide in a safe house. Mansoor tries to leave, but Amina stops him, saying that he can't save everyone. He replies that he has to go since he promised Maku, and he leaves, promising his mom that he will come back safely. He runs, crosses the treacherous trek and fierce flood back to the valley. When he reaches Maku's home, he finds it broken. He looks for Maku at the commission, but does not find her there. The water comes down with more pressure, destroys the dam, and enters the valley. Mansoor sees it approaching the temple, and runs to save Maku. He fights the flood surge, and finally reaches the temple of Kedarnath. Right when he sees her, the flood attacks the temple, drowning them. Underwater, he finds her, and they hold hands. After the water drains away, all that's left is destruction. Mansoor wakes up, all covered in mud. He looks for Maku, and thankfully finds her alive. They both get out of the temple along with other survivors, and see that the flood has destroyed their valley. A rescue helicopter arrives, and Mansoor helps others to get on it. Maku, Mansoor and another man are the last ones remaining, and he straps her to the safety belt and asks her to be safe. When only 2 of them are remaining, the captain says that they can only get 1 more person on board. When Mansoor finds out it's either him or the man, he straps the man to the belt, sacrifice. Maku screams and cries, but he has made his decision. The helicopter leaves with Maku on board, crying, and Mansoor out in the open. On the other side, Amina waits for her son. She tries calling him many times, but he never picks up. Various news channels cover the disaster of Kedarnath, stating that 43 people were drowned in the tragedy. More than 50,000 people were rescued, and 70,000 people were reported missing. But Mansoor was lost, never found. The scene shifts to 3 years later, when the temple of Kedarnath is rebuilt. Maku and her father arrive to pay their respects. She goes back home and turns on the radio. The speaker announces that the next song is in the voice of Lata Mangeshkar, for Mansoor, from his Maku.